Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Chef Vic Cuisine. Today, I have a special treat for you all. I have a recipe given to me from my dear cousin Gia, and today we're making Gia's lasagna. Now, hands down, this is the best lasagna I've ever had, and I can't wait for you guys to try it too. And I'm so thankful that she was gracious enough to share with me so I could share with you all. So, let's get started. Alright, so we have a lot of ingredients for this recipe, but trust me, it's worth it. So we're going to start with 1 pound of 93% lean ground beef, 3 garlic cloves that we're going to mince, 1 large green bell pepper, 1 red large pepper, 1 sweet onion, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, half a teaspoon of Lawry seasoned salt, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and then continued, we'll need 1 teaspoon of dried Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, half a teaspoon of red chili flakes, half a teaspoon of freshly cracked ground black pepper, and then we're going to need 24 ounces of Rao's roasted garlic sauce, and then we're going to need 24 ounces of Ragu's sauteed onion and garlic sauce. Then we're going to need 1 tablespoon of granulated white sugar. And then, of course, we're going to need a box of lasagna noodles, 1 tablespoon of salt, 8 ounces of sharp cheddar shredded cheese, 8 ounces of 5 cheese Italian shredded cheese, and then for the ricotta cheese mixture, we're going to need 2 tablespoons worth of grated Parmesan Reggiano cheese, plus some additional for the topping. Then we're going to need 1 large egg yolk, about 2 tablespoons worth of fresh basil cut into thin strips, then we're also going to need 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley, finely chopped. Then we're going to need 15 ounces of whole milk ricotta cheese, half a teaspoon of fine sea salt, and last but not least, 1 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. Alright, so to get things started, we're going to prepare the ingredients needed for the ricotta cheese mixture. So first up, you just want to grate your Parmesan Reggiano until you get about 2 tablespoons worth. And then once you have that, you can set it aside. And then you want to take about a large handful of fresh basil leaves. And what I like to do is stack them on top of each other and then create nice thin strips of the basil. That way, when it's all ready to be mixed together, your ricotta cheese mixture will have that basil flavor mixed throughout. Next up is the parsley, and you just want to finely chop that up as well, just to also make sure that the parsley flavor gets nice and infused into your ricotta cheese. And so, onto the mixing. All you need to do is use a medium-sized bowl and then add in the whole milk ricotta cheese, and then follow that up by adding the large egg yolk, the fresh basil, the fresh parsley, as well as the Parmesan cheese. Next, we want to add the fine sea salt and the freshly ground black pepper. And then we just want to mix all these ingredients together until they're well combined. And this creates our ricotta cheese mixture blend. And you can always taste and adjust it as needed by adding a little bit of salt and pepper here and there. Okay, so next up, we're going to move on to our red bell pepper. And what we want to do is roast it in the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 204 degrees Celsius with a drizzle of olive oil over the skin of the pepper. And we want to roast it for about 20 minutes. And now with a little TV magic, the 20 minutes are up. And as you can see, the pepper is nice and roasted. We want to remove it from the oven and then carefully remove the skin and the seeds from the pepper and finally chop it up. And then we want to set the diced red bell peppers aside for later on in the recipe. Now on to making the base of the lasagna. You want to take your 3 garlic cloves and mince them, and to make the process simple, I use a garlic press. If you don't have one at your disposal, you can always just chop up the garlic, it works just the same. Moving on to the green bell pepper, you want to finely chop up the green bell pepper into small bite-sized pieces. Of course, discarding the stem and the seeds within. And so once the green bell pepper is nice and chopped up, we can set that aside while we move on to the sweet onion. And likewise, you want to cut off the root and the stem of the sweet onion, and then finely chop the onion into small bite-sized pieces. And if they're in season, I would substitute this sweet onion with a Vidalia onion. Vidalia onions are super sweet, and they add this incredible layer of flavor to the final dish. So if you have a Vidalia onions available to you, I would use that instead of a regular sweet onion. So now that the onions are nice and finely chopped, we can set those aside and move on to cooking the base of the lasagna. So in a large non-stick pot, we want to add in our 2 tablespoons of olive oil and the minced garlic and turn the heat on the stovetop to medium heat or 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 176 degrees Celsius. And we want to saute the garlic in the oil for about 1 to 2 minutes. And so once the garlic's nice and fragrant, we can go ahead and add in our chopped up onions and green bell pepper. And we can saute the onions and the green bell peppers until the onions are translucent, which should take roughly about 5 minutes. And then once the onions and green bell peppers are nice and cooked, we can go ahead and add in our ground beef, as well as the diced red bell pepper, and break the meat apart in smaller pieces using a wooden spoon. And while the meat is still pink, we want to season everything with the Lawry seasoned salt, the garlic powder, the onion powder, the Italian seasoning, the dried oregano, the dried basil, the red chili flakes, and finally, the freshly cracked black pepper. And I just want to stress again that you want to make sure that there are no large chunks of meat, so make sure that you break them apart using your spoon. Don't forget to smash that like button, and if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned to the end of this video for a sneak peek of the recipe coming next week. And now, once the meat is no longer pink, we want to add both jars of spaghetti sauce, both the rouse and the ragu, into the pot. And want to stir all the ingredients together and let this pot simmer for about 5 minutes. And throughout the simmering process, you can always taste and adjust the mixture as needed. And so after the first 5 minutes, we want to add about a tablespoon of white sugar to the mix and stir that in, and then continue to let the sauce simmer for about 5 more minutes, tasting and adjusting as needed. We're going to follow the package instructions for the lasagna noodles to cook them. You just want to use 1 tablespoon of salt in the water that you use. And then once the lasagna noodles are done cooking, you just want to rinse and drain the pasta after it's finished. And then you can set aside the lasagna noodles while you prepare the rest of the ingredients. Now onto assembling the lasagna. We want to spray a 9 by 13 by 2 inch deep dish pan with non-stick cooking spray. Or if you have a throwaway pan, you can place that within your deep dish pan and spray that instead. Now, to get the assembly process started, I like to add a little bit of the meat sauce on the bottom of the pan, just to allow the bottom portion of the lasagna to more easily release once you cut into it. So this bottom layer of quote-unquote meat sauce shouldn't be very thick at all. It's just enough to add some more slickness to the bottom of the pan. So for the first layer, you want to take your lasagna noodles and lay them lengthwise in the pan, slightly overlapping one over the other, as you can see in this video. And then once the bottom surface is covered with the noodles, then we can add in a layer of the meat sauce, and just make sure the meat sauce is covering that first layer of noodles. And then you want to add your ricotta cheese mixture. I like adding dollops here and there on the top surface of the meat. And then you just follow that up with the shredded sharp cheddar and the 5 Italian cheese mixture, sprinkling that on top of the meat sauce as well. And that first layer of meat sauce should be about a wooden spoon's worth of thickness. You don't want too much meat because you want to even the layers out. And so assembling your second layer of lasagna is the same way. You want to start with layering the lasagna noodles lengthwise, overlapping themselves until the top of the mixture is covered. And then you just want to follow it up with another layer of the meat sauce. Like I said before, just about a wooden spoon's worth thick, and making sure that covers all of the lasagna noodles. Then you want to add the remaining amount of ricotta cheese mixture, and you want to spread out this ricotta cheese mixture on top of the meat layer, specifically on this layer, just so you can ensure that each bite of your lasagna has this flavor in it. And then you just want to follow that up with some additional shredded sharp cheddar and 5 Italian cheese. For the third and final layer, you want to add a final row of lasagna noodles, overlapping them as usual. And then you want to add any leftover sauce you have from the pot on top. And then finally, add on some additional Parmesan Reggiano cheese to your liking. Now you want to cover the pan with aluminum foil, spraying with non-stick spray before you apply it, and then cook this lasagna for about 1 hour at medium-high heat, or 375 degrees Fahrenheit, or 190 degrees Celsius. And after the first hour of cooking, we can remove the aluminum foil covering, and you want to cook the lasagna for an additional 20 minutes, or until the cheese on top has turned a golden brown. And so once the lasagna is finished cooking, we can remove it from the oven and then garnish it with some leftover chopped parsley and basil on top. And you just want to let the lasagna rest for about 20 minutes before serving. You want to serve this hot and enjoy. And just like that, you've just made your very own Gia's lasagna. Please let me know down in the comments how this turns out for you. I know for me, once I had this lasagna, there was no turning back. No other lasagna compares, in my humble opinion. This is really, really delicious. And please let me know again in the comments how it turns out for you. Oh, and here's a tip for this recipe. You want to make sure that you strain the ricotta cheese before adding it to the mix. This will help the lasagna not turn out so soupy once it's finished cooking. Oh, and don't forget to add those extra dashes of chopped parsley and basil to the top of the lasagna, and I like to garnish it with some additional Parmesan Reggiano cheese as well. As always, this recipe and many more can be found in my cookbook, Chef Vic Cuisine Volume 2, Elevating Your Inner Chef. And that's available on Amazon, and I'll be sure to leave a link to that in the description box. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button. And if you want to see more recipes like this one, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon to be notified when my next video drops. And stay tuned for next week where I show you this gem from Egypt, koshari, a delicious vegetarian option that is packed with so much flavor. Well, Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week on another episode of Chef Vic Cuisine. And until then, peace.